everybody. I am Jarrett Ross, the GeneaVlogger, and welcome back to another GeneaVlogger live stream. Happy holidays, everybody. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, wonderful Christmas. Hanukkah ended a while back, and then anything else that you might be celebrating. But hopefully everyone's having a good Friday, good weekend. So far, so good for me. Granted, one of my dogs is growling over a treat. He basically doesn't want to eat it yet, so he just holds it and growls at his brother, basically like, hey, this is my treat. So you might hear growling in the background. If you do, that's my dog, Petey. Hello, everybody. Figured I'd just kind of do a holiday theme stream, which I'm not even sure what I mean by that. I was trying to think of something to do holiday wise, and I just was like, well, I'll just do a Q&A, but I guess we can, talk holidays and all that stuff too. So today is Boxing Day or whatever, which I never fully understood, I guess, but I know I feel like I've seen shorts or videos about it. But hello, everybody. Hello, Eve. Happy Boxing Day to those that celebrate from super snowy Ontario, Canada. Currently negative 19 Celsius or -2 Fahrenheit, with another couple of inches of snow forecast on these 5 inches we've already had today. Wow. Yeah. I have not seen snow like that in years in North Carolina. I'm trying to think what the most snow we've had was in, past decade plus, which probably wasn't even more than a couple of feet at most, or not a couple of feet, couple of inches at most. I don't remember, but hopefully you're doing well through the snow. Funny enough, actually, I've been researching a family that was in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada, and there's the cotton name, except spelled differently than yours, Cottam. So I wonder if I'm researching a family connected to you. So if I am, you'll probably realize it pretty soon because it'll be in a video soon. But yeah, I was thinking about you when I was going through it. I was like, I wonder if this is Eve's family. But I didn't see. I figured if it was, I'd probably find trees that you had built. And if you did build any trees, it didn't. I couldn't tell. But yeah. Burke Sulek just baked chocolate chip cookies right on time. Very nice. Yeah, perfect time for baking chocolate chip cookies. Nice cold winter. Granted, we're in North Carolina, it's actually got kind of cold today. Yesterday and the day before, it was in the 60s and 70s Fahrenheit, which I guess is, what is that, like 16 degrees Celsius, something like that. So not cold, but not, hot. Actually pretty nice temperature, honestly. Nobody so excited about my Heritage Complete Genome. I bought 2 on sale for me and my daughter, waiting until January 1st to send it in. Yeah. So the whole genome sequencing, yeah, that's going to be really exciting. For those who don't know, my Heritage is switching from their old way of testing, which was autosomal SNP microchips, or microarray chips, I should say. And now they're switching to whole genome sequencing, which basically means they're going to increase the amount of spots on your DNA that they're testing. So the old way, they were testing about 700,000 spots on your DNA. The new way, they're testing all of it, all 2+ billion. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we're going to be able to make use of that, because until now, the only databases that did whole genome sequence testing didn't really allow comparison. So this will be the first database that allows easy comparison of a large amount of whole genome sequence testers. So yeah, very, very cool. And for those who also weren't aware about that, my Heritage announced this a while back. I want to say maybe in September, maybe October. And they said, it's not guaranteed until January 1st, 2026, that, every test we receive will be whole genome sequence. They have been doing some, apparently, just select few, and there was no way of knowing. So a lot of people have been holding on to those DNA kits and waiting until January 1st, like nobody mentions. So if you have a MyHeritage kit and you want to guarantee that it does get whole genome sequencing, you're probably best to just wait until January 1st to send it, which honestly, that's going to be, you've got the easiest spot if you have a DNA test right now and you're just realizing, oh, I need to wait. Because there's been some people that have been sitting on DNA tests for like a couple of months. So yeah. Lightning fan, it's been a rough few months. In the last 4 months, we've lost Charlie Kirk, Daniel Naroditsky, Rob Reiner, and Adam the Woo. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's, you know, it's been pretty crazy times for the past few years as well. But yeah, it's been pretty wild. It's been pretty wild. Nick and gezegende tweede Kerstdag vanuit Groningen. Kerstdag. Wat is dat? Ik ken niet. En gezegende, I don't know, gezegende. That sounds like some sort of a number, but with the the past, whatever. Yeah, my Dutch isn't advanced enough. We have first and second Christmas Day. Oh, the second first. Okay. So the second blessed. Ah, okay. Yeah, I was like, wait, how's that compare to eerste? The eerste Kerstdag and the tweede Kerstdag. Geen derde Kerstdag, I think. Ik denk. Misschien niet. Person one what? Happy holidays, everyone. Please pass those cookies. Yeah, those that would be nice. That'd be nice. Jose, you made it early. Yeah, just beginning. Oh, my chair's sinking. I need to fix this chair. I know everyone runs into it with these, like, you know, up and down chairs. It kind of loses the whatever. And my chair's having that. I've been sinking slowly. Jennifer, hi from Melbourne, Australia. No snow here. Yeah, wouldn't expect any snow there, but I guess that means that you're in the future. It's Saturday for you, so hello from the past. But yeah, very, very cool. Thank you for joining as always. Jose, I found out from my dad that I have Norse ancestry on his side. I'm guessing it comes Norway, and most people there speak English based on my research. Yeah, I feel like a lot of European countries speak English now, or like there's a large, because it's such a worldwide language, especially with, you know, how popular American movies and TVs are, from my understanding, as well as you know, just the internet making that available. Sheikh Disham, hopefully I pronounced that right. Jarrett, from what state are you? North Carolina. In North Carolina. Yeah. Adam Biros, good evening from Swindon, England. Hello, Adam. Good to have you. Jose got a nice pair of shoes and a leg massager this Christmas. Very cool. All sorts, Michelle, can you upgrade on the site to opt in? I'm guessing you're asking about the whole genome sequencing on MyHeritage, and you cannot. That is something that they have talked about. And basically, you have to buy a new kit. So if you've tested on MyHeritage, whether it was, you know, you just sent in a kit and it doesn't get the whole genome sequencing, or you did it years ago, either way, you have to retest to get the whole genome sequencing, from my understanding. The only way that you could technically upgrade it on the site, if you're talking about the whole genome sequencing, is if you paid for MyHeritage's biobank, where they save your sample. But I don't know if it's an additional cost for them to then test that sample again. But at the very least, if you've done the biobank, then maybe you can do an upgrade per se. I would. It's still not technically an upgrade. It's more of them just retesting your sample, just in a different way. But yeah, interesting. Eve, my Cotton last name was originally spelled Cottam, but the name change occurred around 1800. My branch were illiterate. The DNA confirmed branch in Australia is Cotton. I'm first generation Canadian. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, the family that I'm looking at they married into the family that I'm researching pretty recently, though. It was like, nieces and nephews of the, niece or nephew or whatever of one of the ancestors I'm covering. And so there's a lot of them with that name. But they're all like all around Ontario and mostly, Fort William, Thunder Bay, sort of. That's my understanding. So yeah, but very interesting, very interesting. I wonder if they're distantly related to you. Burke Sulek, maybe we'll get together one day. GeneaVlogger meetup, perhaps, with baked goodies. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. I actually have done meetups in the past. The main one that I did was when I went to Denver, Colorado. A bunch of us edutubers got together and did a meetup somewhere in Denver. I can't remember. It was like a hot spot. If I saw the map, I'd be able to tell you. But it was me. It was Mr. Terry. Yeah, Mr. Terry was there. Mr. Beat was there. Knowing Better was there. Arvin Ash was there. Cynical Historian was there. The Casual Historian. Yeah, the Casual Grant was there. KP Molecular Biology was there, which I don't know if she's been active or not. I haven't talked to her since the Denver trip, I don't think. Who else was? Chris from Vlogging Through History was there too. But yeah, I actually I don't know if you all saw that Mr. Beat was doing a trip thing, kind of like Vlogging Through History's been done. And it got me thinking that, maybe I need to do some sort of a heritage trip like that with a core group of people. And I feel like a lot of the main type of people that would probably do that are people that are in this stream right now. Because right now this is, much smaller audience than I usually have. So I think this is very much my core audience here. But yeah, let me all know. If I should look into it, if I had it where you all could go on a trip, basically, and spend like a week and who knows, going throughout Europe and, doing heritage stuff together and all that sort of thing. Anyone would be interested. But and then if we do that, Burke, you can make some cookies and bring it for us. Make some chocolate chip cookies for it. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, Amsterdam is quite cold also. We saw -14 as real feel. Wow. So I'm guessing, is that -14 as Celsius? Because if it was Fahrenheit, that'd be a bit, that'd be some serious cold. Because I think -14 is, I guess it would be right around 0 for Fahrenheit-ish. Something like that. I don't know. My Martian Romance 97. No snow here. We're supposedly getting rain. Not sure where here is. Did you say before? Did I miss anything? No. All right. Well, let us know where here is. Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, we got some rain the other day. Not a lot, though. Matt Fast. Hello from Sweden. Hello, Matt. Good to see you. Okay. Evening from Amsterdam. Goedenavond. Good to see you. Yes. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. You asked about the whole genome sequencing. All right. Let's. There we go. Jose, now that I think of it, I want to visit Norway one day, specifically Oslo. Granted, that's the capital. Yeah, I don't know if Stig is in here. He's or they. I don't know if Stig's a he. They live in Oslo, I think. I don't know. Vincograph. Hello from Michigan. Hello. MIA is Michigan, right? Yeah, that's right. MIA is Michigan. It's hard. It kind of throws me off with the lowercase letters. It's kind of weird because I was like, wait, MI, is it Minnesota? No. Minnesota's MN. Although watch me have it completely wrong still. Louise, hello. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna jump ahead because we have a super chat. Thank you very much, Vincograph, for the $2. Any tips for someone writing a genealogy book? Honestly, I don't. I could probably use some tips myself. I think I've briefly mentioned this here and there. I try not to say much because I don't want to, make too many promises, but I'm actually trying to write my own genealogy book, a couple of different kinds. That's probably my problem. I have too many ideas at once, and it's like I don't know, but I know the only tip I can really give in a sense, which I guess I don't even know if that would be good. It's just something that I've started looking into is Tom Jones is kind of like a well-known genealogy writer. And so he has kind of a lot of different stuff out there. So I way back in the day, I did a grip course that he came in and taught like an hour lesson of it. And yeah, I kind of for a second started looking into his stuff. So maybe that might be worth looking into. But I also don't know if he was talking more about genealogy books per se versus like genealogy reports and articles and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. NJS 3000 Ancestry DNA paywalling more features, thumbs down. Which did what? Excuse me. Oh, I need to go grab a drink. I'm gonna grab that in a second. Which did they just paywall a newer feature, or are you just talking about kind of them doing the whole paywall for all the new features they're doing now? So like basically you have to do the Ancestry Pro tools to get the clusters, to get the advanced shared matching, to get other stuff. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about, but I'm not sure. But yeah, let me know. Okay, what's Celsius? Visit Lake Titicaca. As a kid, that was something that all the kids found funny. Lake Titicaca. My Martian romance here equals South Jersey. Very cool. Not a lot of South Jersey people that I run into online or in person. Interesting. I'm kind of curious. Did you have? Okay, yeah, I see you. Yeah, that's right. I mentioned the other day in Discord. I grew up right outside of where the Alliance colony existed. Okay, very cool. I was about to say, wait a second, did you? But now I remember that conversation. Okay, sorry. Talking over myself. Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me. All right. I think I jumped past a few people. So all sorts, Michelle, done a number of trips. Very cool. So Sherry sounds fun. Very cool. Very cool. So sounds like some interest. Jose Lopez, have you ever been to Lazuli, Italy? I have not. I've actually never been to Italy. It's one of the things on my list. For anyone that saw my videos about when I did go to London and Amsterdam to meet distant cousins, which if you have not seen those videos, please go check those out after this stream. I put a lot of work into those, and those ones mean a lot to me. But that's the only time I've been to Europe. And so I have a lot of places I want to go. I actually had this whole grandiose idea in mind because part of me kind of hates flying, and part of me also really likes the idea of taking a cruise. So I kind of want to like take a transatlantic cruise to Europe. Like, there's a lot of transatlantic cruises that then go to like, the Western Mediterranean. So like Portugal, Spain, maybe a little bit of Italy, then disembark to do like a week or 2 weeks going through Europe, mainly hitting like, Italy, France, Spain and Portugal, although I'm kind of hoping that I'll get those with, I don't know, but that Amsterdam, maybe London again, and then take a transatlantic cruise back to the US. That's, it'd be a huge trip. There'd end up being like a month and a half because transatlantic cruises themselves are like 2 weeks. I think the fastest ones are maybe like 10 days. So at the very least, it's like if I do a week in Europe for that, that'd be 27 days at best. So yeah, grandiose idea. That's my problem. I get these ideas, I get all these things that I want to do, and then it's like I make it too big, too much on my plate. Donna Roberts, hi from somewhere in Kentucky. Oh, traveling, very cool. Yeah, I thought you were just being a little like, mischievous from Kentucky, but I'm not telling you where. Oh, it was Michigan. Cool. Okay. Good. Nicole Ann, I was invited to work my first genetic genealogy case in July. Congratulations to find the parents of a foundling. It was very challenging. African American in South Carolina and Georgia, with a lot of pedigree collapse, maybe borderline endogamy. Continuing. There were 3 of us on the case. The original lady was on the case starting in June. Then the other girl and I since July. We finally solved the case 2 weeks ago. Man, what an amazing feeling to solve. Very, very cool. Yeah, one of the difficulties with doing foundling cases and adoptee cases for anyone of African American ancestry is there's not as much representation of testers on the databases, meaning that you're often having a more difficult time solving it. So when I did a lot of my investigative genetic genealogy work, if we had any population outside of a European population, the chances of solving it got much harder. Or I guess much lower would be the better way to say it. But like any like we had a lot of cases as well of, you know, people of various Hispanic backgrounds. So we had some people that, you know, Puerto Rican, others where it was, you know, we couldn't quite tell where, but, you know, somewhere Central America, some Mexican cases. There was one case I worked that I actually had talked about in a couple of presentations at RootsTech over the years, where basically we were able to identify that, you know, it was a doe case, so unknown human remains. And basically we found that based on both the admixture as well as our DNA matches, it seemed that one of the parents was distinctly like European American, tracing back to like colonial times, and the other parent was likely from a Mexican American family that had come up or probably lived in the Southwest U.S. when, you know, the U.S. acquired those areas. And so we could see that distinctly. And it was much easier to build the European American side than the, you know, Hispanic side. But we were able to actually figure it out. So, but yeah, very, very cool. Congratulations. That's awesome to hear. Brian Rocket League Galaxy. I took a big Y DNA test and my surname is Curry. I matched a lot of men with the surname Foster. Does that mean my original last name on my direct paternal line was originally Foster? So not necessarily. What you'll want to do is you'll want to analyze a couple of different tools they give you through Big Y. The first one is going to be your Big Y block tree. And with the block tree, what that does is it creates blocks of different family lines based on how closely you're matching each other. So in a sense, it's creating a family tree where instead of a single block node representing a person like a typical family tree would, each block represents a grouping of people that have the most similar DNA. So when it comes to big wide terms, basically they have what's known as a terminal SNP that they all share. There's a specific spot on their genome, the SNP. So a single nucleotide polymorphism, it's just a fancy word for a specific spot on your genome where we expect a change from our reference DNA. So there's a reference DNA they compare all DNA against, and if there's a change from that reference, then that helps them know that there's something going on that they can compare. And so with that terminal SNP, that's going to help you get an idea of, okay, we're all related within, you know, we're all closest related. And so if you find that that Foster family is in the same block as you, then you do have a much better chance of, you know, Foster could possibly be the family's original surname. But the thing about Big Y testing is, you know, we're looking at thousands of years back. So if, you know, if you're looking at the big block tree and you're in a block over here, and even if they're in the block next to you, being in separate blocks means your most recent shared ancestor could have lived 2,000 years ago. And so that could possibly mean that you weren't necessarily originally a Foster, both of your lines were originally something else, or maybe not anything at all. And then when those lines, you descend from one son from this guy from 2,000 years ago, the others descend from another son, and one line from the one son took Foster, the line from the other son took Curry. So that, you need to analyze that to help. The other thing you'll want to analyze is the timeline tree. Is that what they call it? Let's see, FTDNA. I'll just go with J2. So I'm gonna bring up the Family Tree Discover reports, which is something you don't even need to test on Family Tree DNA or even log in to look at these. Granted, if you've tested on it, if you've tested and you want to utilize this stuff as best possible, you'll want to log in, obviously. So here's, just as an example, here's the overarching branch for my Y haplogroup. I descend from the JM172, what's also known as J2, I think, or maybe J2 is a little further back or down. J2. Here we go. JM172. So this is kind of like, the far, far back reaches. So if you look over here to the left, we have time tree and match time tree, and that's what you want to look at. So time tree and match time tree are basically the same, except with match time tree, it actually tells you the names of the matches, whereas time tree just gives you their kit number. So it like anonymizes it. Now, I don't think it's going to turn up anything here necessarily because I didn't test. Okay, there we go. So now it's showing this. So these are the ancient samples. So it's not going to show me any actual testers to compare against. But so here's the time tree. So let's just use for an example. Let's say, all right, this is going to be really difficult to do because it's so crazy with the time wise. But okay, so let's say this is you. Let's say you've done the testing and this is you. Or maybe we'll say this one's you. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So this one's you. And let's say that first scenario, all of the Fosters are from over here. So all of these guys from this one, they're Fosters. But then you're down here. So you are downstream. So you can see that this guy they're like downstream from each other. And so basically what could have happened is this guy that you descend from, for whatever reason, this one's where the Cyrus comes in. And so when you look at these other testers that are closer to you, maybe you don't even see, or not Cyrus, excuse me, Curry, but maybe you see with all these other testers just a variation of names, which is very common. It just means that you're coming from a wide DNA line where it's cultures that the surnames weren't adopted until much later. And so then, kind of like I said before, then that probably indicates you aren't descending as a Foster, and you wouldn't necessarily find Foster in your family tree or in your ancestry. It would just be that if you trace back thousands of years, you'd find a sibling of an ancestor's descendants became Foster. But, oh wow, I'm just noticing now how small this is on the tree over there and how difficult it is to see. I'm gonna take that down. There we go. That should make it a little bit better. But now let's say that instead, this is, all right, this isn't you. Let's say this is you, right? L. Wong and 13, doesn't really matter. And you have a bunch of other DNA matches here, and these are all the ones that are Foster. Well, then that indicates that very likely that this guy right here, the majority of his descendants are Fosters, so there is a very high likelihood that, yes, then you are a Foster. And then you'd want to see, well, how far back is this guy? So we're not going to go with the numbers that they have on here because it won't make sense to our scenario. But let's say that this says this guy was living sometime between 1500 and 1800, because it's usually going to be a wide range. So that means that all of these people and you have an ancestor that you all share Y DNA, you all descend from paternally, and they were living sometime between the years 1500 to 1800. That's well within the range of window that you'd expect the family to likely have foster. And then the other thing you'd want to do is look at all these matches and how far back do their foster connections go. So if you can find that, they all have a foster ancestor that they can all trace to who was alive in the 1600s, well, there's a really good chance that you could descend from that same guy as well. And so from there, then you would start researching to see, can you find through your paternal line some sort of connection to then connect to that? And, yeah, hopefully that all made sense. Hopefully that all made sense. But yeah, all right. There we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The cookie recipe, amazing. It's by Joshua Weissman. Very cool. Very cool. Eve, you have to take a repositioning cruise, but those are very seasonal. So, well, they're not all transatlantics are repositioning. A good majority of them are. There are some cruises that do just regular transatlantic cruises, very few and far between. But yeah, I really intensely researched this and was trying to plan a trip, probably about a year or so ago, and then just did not have the capabilities to do it based on time and a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, I'd love to do that. That'd be so much fun. So much fun. Taking the Orient Express would be amazing also. Nicole Ann, yes, with the slavery brick wall, lower testing population, having some matches matching in 2 to 4 different ways made it so challenging, gave me a lot of experience from a single case, though. Yeah, it really can give you a lot of good experience. And this is one of the reasons why when a lot of people will ask, how do I become an investigative genetic genealogist? The number one answer is take as many cases as you possibly can for unknown parentage. So become a search angel and do a lot of pro bono cases, helping adoptees, helping foundlings, helping people that are descendants of adoptees, people that, for all sorts of reasons, they have unknown ancestry. So, I've done a lot of Holocaust cases where people descend from a family that survived through the Holocaust, but they basically don't know beyond their parents and maybe their grandparents or things like that. And so we, help figure that out. And so by doing more and more cases, that's how you get the most experience. And it's actually kind of a little bit of a worry to a lot of genetic genealogist practitioners, and especially investigative genetic genealogist practitioners, that now that it's become so popular amongst the true crime crowd and the just the typical crime solvers, that a lot of them are trying to create, trying to build a genealogical knowledge so they can do it themselves. And as a large majority of us know that have done this genetic genealogy stuff, it's a lot to figure out. And every time you do a different population group, have you look at somebody else's DNA test, the differences are wild. And for some people, they really just do their own stuff, maybe some of their other family members. And so they have a little bit of experience, but they get really good at it. And then they're like, oh, I'm definitely ready. And then they take a case that's slightly different, an African-American case or a Puerto Rican case, or someone who was actually born in Ukraine, or someone, from South America, or just, one of the more difficult population groups. And it's just such a different thing. And then even within those population groups, there's variations of that. So even within African American, you have a large grouping of your Gullah Geechee people in Georgia and South Carolina and places like that. Then you also have a very different grouping of people where they're in, the Florida Panhandle and Alabama and Mississippi, and kind of part of that, Creole population grouping. And then you've got a whole different grouping where you're looking at, Tennessee and Kentucky, and it's within all of those, you have some that are much harder to figure out because the pedigree collapse is so great, whereas others, it's not as bad because of how things were in that area, there was more exogamy, people marrying outside of their population group in a sense. So yeah, so it definitely that's the biggest thing, is just getting that experience. Spin Ninja 1, afternoon, JR. How's it going? It's going well. Hope you're doing well too. Yeah, just I guess fun chill boxing day, doing a doing a nice little stream here. Donna Roberts. My husband has done the big Y. There are 6 different surnames in his top 10 matches at Y111. His closest match to his terminal SNP has a different surname. His family lore is that they are Welsh. Interesting. I don't know what the thing with Welsh surnames is, but there is a genealogy YouTuber, Genealogy Cymru, who, as the name proceeds, talks about Welsh genealogy. And I believe that they have a video specifically about Welsh surnames. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check out their channel. The person who runs it, their name is Di Davies, and I don't know if Di is active as much anymore. I know I see them post every once in a while, but yeah, very very worthwhile channel to check out if you have any sort of Welsh ancestry. Which I've never really done any Welsh research. I have done a good amount of Cornish research, largely thanks to Max Miller's family. So it's limited Cornish research, but some. So very different than Welsh, obviously. Gina, a little late, but here. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining. Even late, better than not at all. And Merry Christmas, season's greetings. Yes, thank you. Merry Christmas, season's greetings. Happy holidays. Spin Ninja 1, totally agree. Different populations really mix things up. I love working on those tests, though, as it only builds up knowledge further. Yeah, I definitely agree. It's I think one of the biggest benefits that I had in my early days in genealogy, before, I had any plans at all of trying to do this professionally. In fact, most of the time I've done genealogy for my life, I had no plans to do this professionally at all. And I basically, the thing that helped really build a lot for me was building my friends' family trees. And when I really got into it, I was in college. So I'd be, hanging out Saturday night, nothing really going on, in town, bunch of people hanging out at the place. We're all drinking, doing typical college stuff, slightly partying, but chill. And me just being like, hey, so what's your grandparents' deal? Next thing you know, I'm building their family trees. And I started befriending all of these different parents of my friends, because, we do that. And then they'd be like, I need to ask my parents. And they go ask their parents. And, but it gave me the ability to research all of these different population groups. And plus, it was really cool to see how, all of my friends and all these people that were, a big part of my life, coming from all of these various ancestral backgrounds, and just thinking 300 years ago, all of our ancestors were scattered all across the world, and probably would have never had any idea that their descendant was then going to be friends with these descendants of all these other people. I mean, basically think about it 200 years from now, my descendants and the descendants of someone in Nairobi, Kenya, might be best of friends and live together and whatever. It's you just never know. And it's I may never interact with that person's ancestor who's alive today, but hundreds of years from now, they'll be best of friends. I don't know. That's the kind of connections that I just love to figure out, sort of. I don't know. It's just all cool. Yeah, she's glad to hear it doing well also. Very cool. Donna Roberts, Wales adopted surnames very late. Okay, so that, yeah. Yeah, surname history is very interesting. It really does vary a lot. I'm sure, I don't know if a lot of people know, a big push for surnames throughout Europe is in thanks to Napoleon, because when Napoleon was conquering Europe, everywhere that he conquered, he would enact civil registrations, and that required surnames. And so populations were then forced to take surnames. And there's a story about the Dutch with surnames that, from my understanding, is mostly false, but there are some slight instances of it being true, where a lot of Dutch did not want to take surnames, and they were like, oh, this isn't going to last. So they took really silly surnames like what is it? Knocked Bouta? Is that it? Naked Outside or something like that? Knocked Bouta? No, Knocked Bouta would be Night Outside. I don't know, but basically, surnames like Naked Outside, or like, I don't know, just funny, stupid stuff. And from my understanding, that's mostly a myth. But I guess there are some cases that it was true, because people take whatever they want. Take whatever they want. Spin Ninja. I'm currently working on my uncle's family tree. His family tree is mostly populations which I've not worked with, like the Danish and Hungarians. So fun to work on. Yeah, very interesting. I've done a lot of Jewish Hungarian research. Haven't done a lot of just general Hungarian research. And then I was able to do a little bit of Danish research for the research I did for Drew Durnell. So another great video if you haven't seen that video, which that was a video I was really disappointed at the time of how many views it got. I was really hoping to do well. Granted, I was looking back at it recently, and it was like, oh wow, it's actually kind of doing better than it did better than my videos are currently doing these days. My videos, people haven't noticed, views are not holding up as well as they used to, but working to improve, trying to figure it out. Vicky, I've got a line who swear they are Welsh, yet I've not found any Welsh yet, just industrial Birmingham, UK. Very funny. Is it like a present day, like, oh no, we're Welsh? Or is it something that it's like a couple of generations back where it's like, what's your, ethnicity? Welsh. Burke, yeah, one girl I know has a surname, Corticas, short cheese. Yeah, short cheese. Yeah. Although I will say that there are a lot of Dutch names that are just very interesting, like Vrouwtje, small woman, like that's your name, Vrouwtje, or Schoontje, which I guess what would that be? Small clean thing? Small clean. I don't know, but those are given names. And like in my family, and I don't, maybe I don't realize if these aren't like common Dutch names. I kind of thought they were, because in my family those were like the names of women. Like Schoontje, my second great grandmother was born Schoontje Moscow, and then her English name was Jane Moscow. So it's like, I don't know, but I did find there's a lot of Schoontjes who would go with Jane. So if any of my Dutchies know what that is, that'd be really, really cool. Yeah. Happy holidays, JC the Music Man. Good to see you. Thank you for jumping in. Hope you had a good holiday. Neek, Wiki, first explanation is that the surname is an adaptation of the German name Nachgebora, which means afterborn or born after the father's death. Okay. Second possibility is that the name was adopted by a man who often used the statement, "We were all born naked," as an expression of his Dutch common sense. Interesting. And JC Music Man, sometimes a family member might say they thought they were Welsh, and it's based on being passed down without verification. Well, I also wonder, with the Welsh thing, if maybe it's one of those ethnicities that was kind of like romanticized in a sense, or like, what's the there's like a term in exotic. It's like seems exotic, and so it's like a common theme in different populations where they will say they have a certain ancestry that they largely don't. That's largely proven false. So the most common one in genealogy is the Americas, and that's having a Native American ancestor, or, gets really specific with the, Cherokee princess ancestor, but even just Native American. And I think a lot of the folks in here that have done a lot of genealogy, I'm sure they've seen some program that talks about it. Find a Grave talks about it a lot. Gotta raise my chair again. And I did a video on Mr. Beat's Ancestry where, you know, he had a family story that he had Powhatan ancestry, and then we basically found that there was nothing to support it. Now, there was nothing to disprove it. There were definitely possibilities of, well, she may have been Native American and we just don't know, or, you know, because you did have a couple of brick wall ancestors where there were some trees that claimed certain things, but records did not back it up. None that claimed her having Native American ancestry, but it certainly would have been possible too. But either way, so it's, you know, that's a common thing. Another very common one is for, I think it was 17th century and 18th century Jews living in the Lithuania Polish Commonwealth and like kind of other areas of Lithuania and Poland and probably some of present day Belarus, that there was, it was common for them to have Sephardi ancestry, or say they had Sephardi ancestry, just like the Native American one. So basically, a lot of these families, like there's a lot of Ashkenazi families that are like, and then my Sephardic ancestor who was in Poland. And while there were some lines that we were able to prove that, oh yeah, there were like singular, very, you know, like not a migration event, but singular events of like, you know, a couple of people who were Sephardic going to Poland or things like that. But for the most part, it's so uncommon that most of the people that have that in their family ancestry, or the rumor of that, it's more of a myth than true. And so maybe that's the same thing with Welsh, is that, you know, there were certain, you know, areas of the UK where it became really, you know, popular or could be beneficial for some reason to claim having that ancestry. So, you know, I feel like in the US, you know, there's, with the whole Native American thing, it's kind of just a, you know, badge of honor sort of thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of that, like some of the rumors and all that, maybe they also started because, you know, when the whole tribal membership stuff was going on. Actually, you know, I'm just making, I'm literally just like, I'm not making things up, but I'm like kind of just doing conjecture at this point. But like, I guess basically what I'm saying is I just wonder if, you know, the benefits of being a Native American tribal member for any of the tribes was something that would cause some of these rumors that are in families today. But I have no clue if that's the case. And that's kind of why I was stopping myself of like, I really don't know what I'm talking about here. Literally just like, well, maybe it's like this. And I could be completely off. That people watching this that know Native American history that are like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Which I basically don't, you know. Can't know everything. Wish I did, but I can't. I guess I don't know if I wish I did. That'd be a lot. That'd be a big burden to know everything. Be omniscient. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, Spin Ninja. My Italian fourth great grandfather's first wife was a foundling, and her name was Chiara Lovelos, or Chiara, which is quite literally Chiara the Fast. Oh, interesting. Interesting. That's pretty cool. Chiara the Fast. Vicky, I'm not sure each person has a different take on the Welsh story. It's a complicated family line. Okay. Yeah. Eve, after the potato famine, it was easier to be Welsh than Irish in Lancashire, Northwest England. A lot of anti-Irish sentiment amongst the working class. Okay, so that, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Irene, hi there. Been here since the beginning, but forgot to say hi from Cary, North Carolina. Well, hello, Irene. Thank you for joining as always. Glad that you're here. Whether you say hello or not, but hello. Thanks for joining. So, all right. Actually caught up to chat. So, yeah, got a few more people than we had earlier. So yeah. Any questions people have, or just, you know, what'd you do for your holidays? You know, did anyone have anything special they did for Christmas? Anyone do anything special for Hanukkah? I know one thing I did. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go grab something. I'm gonna put on an ad, see if that works, and then I'm gonna go grab something from what I did over my holiday time. Granted, I did this a bit ago, so all right, hold on one sec. I'm gonna put on the ad. Okay. That took me way too long. Oh wow, look at how the lights are. So yeah, I went to a Hurricanes game that was Hanukkah themed. So they let us out onto the ice. They gave us these hats. Oh gosh. It's gonna cause people issues. Look at that's so funny. Whoa. It's got on this side hurricanes. Or I guess hurricane. Wow. Yeah. So that was it took me way too long to go get that for the amount of time I just for that. Oh, and I'm seeing no ads coming. No ad. All right, whatever. Whatever. All right, take that off. Yeah, that's all right. So, and I grabbed myself a drink. That was part of what took me a second. Okay. All right. So where was I? Where was I? Oh yeah. There we go. All right, JC, been rewatching the TV show Bones, and I find the anthropology and science behind tracing common traits to regions. Oh, very cool. Jose had a gathering with family and friends. Very nice, very nice. Vicky, oh, okay. You're responding to Eve. No ad, just you're welcome to the stream. Well, all right. Maybe some of you got ads. I don't know. Gainer 1721. My latest Ancestry DNA update from October 2025 says I'm 24% Celtic and Gaelic with with DNA from Central Scotland and Northern Ireland, Leinster, Connacht, Ireland, but I have no Irish ancestors. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how well the Ancestry DNA update is necessarily for all of that, but I'm guessing that you have ancestry that's somewhere else in the British Isles. And so, I guess, it also depends how much you know about your family tree. So if, you find that one line of your family, maybe you find out that, your grandmother came from some area where if you trace back, 300, 400 years, the majority of the people that settled there were from Ireland or something. Might not be, but that could be a possible explanation for it. So very interesting. I guess the other thing too is, are you finding that sort of stuff on other sites? Granted, whenever you're talking about Northwestern European in general, that's such a hard one to figure out. Neek, last week I saw that there are a lot more full text search documents from Groningen on Family Search since the last time I've updated, or since the last time I checked. Yeah, from my understanding, they've been putting a lot of records into the full text search. And I've been seeing a couple of different WhatsApp groups I'm in with genealogists of people like, hey, did you all see that, they added this or they added that? And so it's like getting a lot on there. Like, I think they got a lot of notarial records from Italy, I think it was. Maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe it was different records, but yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. Eve, I learned how to translate Danish to English after my son got a recipe for Danish butter cookies after his elderly customer gave few cookies written in Danish. They turned out well. I had ingredients. Very cool. Very cool. That sounds like, well, I guess, Max Miller Cooking with History sort of stuff, except like in a slightly different way. Gina, the lights in the menorah are really lighting. Yeah. So like here it is turned off and then turned on. Do it like, oh, geez. I don't want to give people a stroke. So yeah, I didn't realize the light would do that. Here, I'm gonna see if I turn the green screen off. Will it work? All right. So on my end, I went to go turn the green screen off and it just froze. I have no idea what it looked like for all of you. But I like freaked out there for a second, like, oh my gosh. So, all right, let's continue. Bervar, happy belated Hanukkah, along with the 48 other spellings. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many spellings. But that's what you get when you transliterate stuff, That's the right word, right? Transliterate. Yeah. Take it from one language that's written differently to another language where it's different characters. So nobody. So I am William's maiden name and pretty sure there was Welsh DNA. So also I need to find which Williams we are if anyone has anything to suggest. Interesting. All right, let's see. Bervar, enjoyed your video of 23andMe. Shame they're still not keen on the genealogy market. They have so much potential. Yeah, I think that was an issue that was raised a while back, when Ann Wojcicki got the nonprofit created to try to get 23andMe out from under Regeneron's feet. And, basically it was like, okay, well, if it's Ann Wojcicki back at the helm, she's been the leader. So is she going to change up how she leads? And I mean, her statement to me, it's all health. It's all traits. It's all, it's all that sort of stuff that it's like, okay, I mean, I get it. That's kind of your, that's your main thing is you want to, help improve health and stuff. And that's great. But you also have to be realistic about the company and being viable as a company. And, and I think a big part of that is them realizing genealogy is the way to go for that. The genealogy community is the one that's going to support it the most. because they're going to be the ones that get the most out of it on a continual basis. And one of the things that someone had asked in the comments of that video was, what do you think that 23andMe could do to, stand out or really make a big difference? And honestly, I think the biggest thing is if they could team up with one of the other genealogy databases, like especially one of the more, I hate to call them third-party databases, but like one of the other databases that's not quite as big but still popular, and have some sort of a bundled membership where they have their 23andMe Premium Plus, but then you pay this extra amount, and then you also get access to Genealogy Bank and Find My Past, or American Ancestors by NEHGS, or maybe something else, or maybe they team up with DNA Painter, and you can pay a fee where you can utilize DNA Painter tools through their website, or there's different ways of doing it, but I think that would be their best way, because if you look at Ancestry and you look at MyHeritage, that's honestly been a big part of their business, is having it where they're creating the most value, but at the same time giving you tiered options for access. Now, there are obviously issues with that as well. There's no perfect system. So, the worry with that is, well, are they going to do what Ancestry's been doing with, okay, well, we'll start doing new stuff, but now it's going to be an extra membership. You can pay for your Ancestry World membership where it gets you everything, but it still isn't going to get you Pro Tools. That's another $10 a month. And so, that's the thing that people really worry about, all the real serious nickel and diming. But I honestly think if Ancestry were to take those steps and get with one of these other companies, and maybe they've been trying that, because one thing they did do that's been a little under the radar because it's not very amazing, in all honesty, is they've added records to their database. But it's all records that are like, the most basic of the basic, federal U.S. Census records, and, World War II drafts and World War I drafts, and, other record sets that are, public domain, easily downloadable by anybody. And then they just make it available through their website, which is a benefit to the people that use 23andMe and don't really do genealogy that much. Which, that is great that, give them the ability to add more to their profiles, which then helps the serious genetic genealogists. But if they really teamed up, basically made it where, okay, this is a really good deal that, I'm going to pay this much, but I get 23andMe and I get Find My Past. And that could be just enough for both companies to benefit, because, that's with some of these databases like Find My Past and Genealogy Bank, and, there's tons of others. They could honestly get a whole suite of various databases from around the world and have it where, do a deal, and okay, they can access it through the profile. But like I was saying before, we see with Ancestry, they have multiple websites. They've got newspapers.com, they've got Fold3, there's Find a Grave. And you look at MyHeritage, and they have Genie, which is, a separate company, but it is a MyHeritage company or whatever they call it. And then they also have Old News, which is their newspapers website. And I feel like they have something else. They did purchase that webinar site. I can't think of the name of it. It's like on the tip of my tongue. If anyone knows exactly what I'm talking about, put it in chat. But yeah, so it really is a shame that they're not. It doesn't seem that they're keen on the genealogy market. But I will say, over the past year and a half or two, I guess really just the past year, there's been a lot of things they've done that seems to show they realized the mistake of just, pushing away the genealogy community years ago. Which honestly, that's like almost 10 years ago that they started doing that. I remember the first few years when I first tested, it was in 2013. I did the comprehensive genome test through Family Tree DNA. So not a whole genome sequence test. They called it the comprehensive genome. So basically, it was the Family Finder test, the Y67 test, and then the full mitochondrial test. But at that same time, 23andMe was one of the more popular sites. And I remember reading about it a lot. I had very limited money. So for me, it was like family tree DNA is the way to go because I wanted to do Y. I wanted to do mitochondrial. Especially on my Y line, I was very curious about my Goldberg ancestry. Am I really a Goldberg? Which is, for those who don't realize, my surname Ross was one that was technically should be Goldberg. But yeah, so I don't know if I'm rambling. Probably am. I know a lot of people like it when I ramble sometimes, but it really they have a way to get to really stand out in the market, and I think that will be through partnerships, collaboration, and whatever else. So all right, let's see. Donna Robert, I've heard that some of the Native American ancestry claims can be chalked up to racism. It was seen as more desirable to claim Native American ancestry than African ancestry. Very interesting. Although I will say that in my experience, that story of a Native American ancestor is just as prevalent in African American families as it is in European American families. The only caveat with that being that that the families have to trace back to pre-Civil War America. I say pre-Civil War America largely because for African American families, that's the wall that then creates the haziness of what the true family history is, because as we know, slavery destroyed the ability to trace family trees because it destroyed, I'm trying to think of the word to use, but I think everyone kind of gets what I'm saying. It destroyed people's not personalities, but it destroyed your individualness, and with that your pedigrees and things like that. But even then, for a lot of American families where they can trace back to the American Revolution and they're European Americans, not African Americans, they have these stories as well. So I don't know if one's more prevalent than another, but it could be. Could be. Let's see. Ren27. What would be the best way to research African American ancestors who left the U.S. in the mid 1800s for South Africa? This whole branch came totally out of left field, or best place to start, rather. Yeah, very interesting question. Now, I don't know off the top of my head necessarily where the best place to research would be. But the first thing that I would start with, let's share the screen. There we go. Let me take this down. Is the Family Search Wiki on South Africa. Because you might be able to find records of them coming from America. Let's see, there we go. You might find records of them coming from America, but if it's mid 1800s, then you're really going to be looking for records in South Africa more, I think. And so I would go here, and then if where they are, if they're in Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Free State, whatever, if they're from Johannesburg, then what is Johannesburg Free State? Can't remember. But they break it down. Basically, the wiki is just every possible thing available for you to learn about how to research. So you can look in the different jurisdictions, and some of them will have more info than the others. So here we have for Eastern Cape, they give some of what's available. They give different links. But one of the things that you can really do, or one of the things you'll commonly find, is these buttons. The blue button, which is online genealogy records, the purple button, which is online research help, so actually like getting help from people in a forum, and then red is getting started. And so for the red, getting started is usually like what's the most basic of the basic to get going. But for the South Africa online genealogy records, this is where you get the most concise. Here's what records are available. here's where they are available. So let's make this a little bit bigger. So here we have births, and we can see, okay, 1660 to 1970, we have these births: South Africa Dutch Reformed Church Registers, Cape Town Archives. So they have it at Family Search, which Family Search is free. There's even a how to use this collection link, so if you want to learn how to do that. But then semicolon here showing its indexes, it's the index and its images. So index means that it's just a list with the information. Images means it's an image of the original record. Then it also mentions it's also available to Ancestry, which it costs money. It's the money symbol. And it's also available at MyHeritage. So it's really helpful because it tells you can instantly see, okay, well, if I'm looking for an ancestor who would have died in South Africa in, let's say, 1872. Okay, so we find there's cousins died in South Africa, 1872. We have all of these options of death records. South Africa Dutch Reformed Church Registers. Well, if they're South Africa Dutch Reformed, which I don't know if you necessarily know that or not, maybe you'll find them there. Then more of those from Stellenbosch Archive. Then here we have South Africa Church of the Province of South Africa. South Africa Settlers Death Index. South Africa Methodist Parish Marriage Registers. South Africa Death Registration. And then British Armed Forces and Overseas Deaths and Burials. So depending on which one fits the most, or if none of them fit, you might need to do the thing of just, well, go and try every single one I can. Because if you don't know, where they might be, but it's possible they're in some of these, might as well try them. And sometimes it's very worthwhile to try ones where it might not necessarily fit 100%, because sometimes you'll have a variety of things that are not what the title makes it seem. So, we have this South Africa Dutch Reformed Church records, and, I'm not saying that this record set is this way, but just as an example, maybe you look through it and you find that actually there's South African Jews who are listed in here too for some reason. Sometimes that's a possibility. So, with each record set, you also want to learn the context of things, because you may find that it's called one thing, but it's not quite that way. So like in Amsterdam, there's civil registers for baptisms. Well, Jews don't baptize their children, but Jews do have a bris for their sons. So bris records are often included in the baptism records. So if you go by what the book says, you'd think, oh, they're being baptized, but they aren't. They're being circumcised. They're getting a bris. So, okay, so hopefully that was helpful for you. Oh, yeah, Donna Roberts, thank you. So family tree webinars, that was what I was thinking of that MyHeritage has now. Yeah. And Stoke Sherry, I totally agree about your 23andMe video. Thank you. Gainer, I can trace my ancestry between 6 to 13 generations. Very nice. No Irish ancestors, but my father had Scottish ancestors from Berwickshire and East Lothian on the east side of Scotland, 18th and 19th centuries. Okay, so basically you can trace all of your generations back 6 to 13 generations, and no Irish ancestors. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if over time, you slowly build and make some sort of a discovery that then shows what's going on. One thing to always consider, and I obviously don't know where your research is at with this to say one way or the other, but there's always the possibility of an NPE, a non-parental event going on somewhere in there. So, maybe the fifth great grandparent that you have, maybe a fifth great grandparent that you have isn't truly the fifth great grandparent. Granted, that's really far back for what you were asking before about 24% or whatever, which, just to remind everyone who's like, wait, what is he talking about? This comment from earlier. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if you're able to figure it out, or it really could just be an anomaly of their system and just issues. Basically it's false positive in a sense. So Donna Roberts, if someone has Irish ancestry, so genetically Scottish, would you expect them to match with people currently living in Northern Ireland, even if their family didn't commingle, but other Scots did? Well, whenever it comes to actual DNA matches, you know, I mean, that's going to be people that, you know, you really have a high likelihood of actually having shared ancestry. So if someone has Scott Irish ancestry and they have relatives that are genetically related that went to Northern Ireland, uh, they're going to match. I don't. It's. I think it's going to vary for every person depending on their family. Um, but I personally, this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse in terms of, you know, this kind of very specific sort of stuff. Um, in terms of like Scots, Irish, and the Scottish and Northern Ireland migrations, and you know the history there of who went where when. That's where my lack of knowledge is here. But you know, I think it's certainly possible that um, you know, I mean, the way to look at it in my mind is that when you're looking at the genetic relatives, your matches, you're usually looking at about a fifth cousin distance or closer. Now, you can obviously DNA match people that are more distant than fifth cousins, but the large majority of your matches that you're going to match are probably going to be, I guess I shouldn't say the large majority. The majority of matches that you can, I don't know. I don't know how to put this necessarily. Basically, what I'm getting at is if you do come from a family where for whatever reason they were, you know, traveling around a lot, um, you might. So it's a really hard question to answer just because it's like there's so many things that are going on to figure that out, kind of, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. All right, Stoke Sherry's Billion Graves. Not sure what that was in reference to. Maybe when I was asking what company they have, which who owns? I think isn't Billion Graves their own site? Like it's not owned by one of the larger companies, or maybe I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know. Berivar, have you seen the new 23andMe Plus Total Health Test? They claim it's an advanced version of their genotype test for $4.99 plus $1.99 annual membership. It looks like an overpriced whole exome genome test. Yeah, so I saw they released that. You know, when it comes to the medical stuff, I really don't know if there'd be a benefit to that difference. And a big part of that is because I am not a medical geneticist. And the thing that I always say is whenever it comes to using DNA tests for medical purposes, you're best off seeking advice from an actual medical geneticist, someone that knows what they're talking about, someone that knows what tests are available medically, and there's a lot that goes on with that. So when it comes to something like this, to me, it definitely feels very gimmicky. It just feels like they're just like, well, we can get memberships from the people that care about the medical side of things because people are really willing to pay a lot of money for the medical stuff, even if it's not quite as good as a, actual medical DNA test that you'd take through a genetic doctor or whatever, geneticist. So I don't know enough about it. And, I have companies that have reached out to me to do sponsorships that are, just 100% all about the medical traits and all that. And at best, they have an admixture. And the thing I always say whenever those kind of companies reach out is, thanks for reaching out. But unless you have some sort of familial matching database with your site, I'm really not interested. Granted, lately, because lack of the ability to make money on YouTube, I've there's been a few that I'm like, well, maybe I can advertise them and just say, this isn't genealogy, but then I'm still like, I shouldn't. So yeah, I really just try to avoid anything that, if it's not genealogy, then I'm really not going to know what I'm talking about well enough to confidently say it. I could confidently say stuff about all that stuff and sound very smart about it, but from my own knowledge, I know that there's gaps in it that are big enough for me not to, I shouldn't give advice on that. So the way that all experts should be, in my opinion, if you don't know something, don't pretend to know it. Yeah. Matt, Northern Ireland mentioned. Woo. Yeah. Belfast. Yeah. What is it? County Down? Isn't that's it, right? County Down. JC Music Man, be kind to yourself. You aren't rambling. You're either riffing, vamping, or doing stream of consciousness, educational content. Yeah, I guess I am. So thank you. Thank you for that. And let's see. Anma Ban, not quite sure what your username is, but okay. And maybe an increased interest in genealogy will begin soon. Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I will say from when I first started doing genealogy to now, the increase has gone crazy. There was a big increase all throughout the 2010s, but then once it reached 2018, the whole investigative genetic genealogy thing went off. Even though there were a lot of people that deleted their DNA kits and stuff, which is a big shame, there was still also a huge amount of interest that people started to show in genealogy because of that. So very cool. For Ulster Scots, come to me. LOL. Thanks, Matt. Brian Fox, what do you think about Nebula Genomics full genome sequencing? Seems like the company failed or was purchased. That begins said, should I download all my data from them? I'm not sure. So I have tested with Nebula Genomics full genome sequencing. They were purchased by some other company, but that happened a while back. And they still have two separate websites. They have the old website, and then they have a newer website that I guess is for people that are going to test now. I don't know. I haven't tested with since or I haven't retested with them. There's no reason really for me to do that other than to see what's it like testing with them now versus back then. I think it's not a bad idea to download your data and just have it, especially something from Nebula, because the BAM file, the CRAM file, the what is it, the VSAT file? I forgot. There's like 5 or 6 different files to download, and some of them are take a long time to download. So I definitely would suggest downloading them. I don't know if the company failed or not. There was always a lot of question marks with the company, because there was always stuff that they were talking about doing, and there was stuff that they even announced that then didn't happen. So, a great example is the whole family tree DNA collaboration that they were going to do, and they'd announced it. And basically, like, it wasn't even just we're working towards a membership with family tree DNA. It was soon you're going to be able to upload your results to family tree DNA and get matches and blah, blah, blah. And like, I remember when there was a point they hit where it finally, they had to say it wasn't happening, which from my understanding was a while after they knew it wasn't going to happen. Basically family tree DNA or gene by gene or whoever made it apparent they were like, this partnership's not going to work. And I think they were in the background at Nebula probably like, we got to figure something out. We literally said this is going to happen. And then they hit a point where they had to say it. And I remember when that finally came out, and even before it, I had a video about Nebula, which I ended up unlisting. It is available if you're one of my YouTube members or a Patreon member. There's a special playlist I have for you all, which if you are one of my members or my Patreon patrons and you don't know how to get to that playlist, let me know and I'll let you know how to do that. But in that video, before I took it down or unlisted it, really, there were a lot of people commenting basically like, hey, did you see that they're not doing the family tree DNA? Isn't this kind of like a bait and switch and blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know if they're, necessarily, did something illegal. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if there was something that he did that's not, hunky dory, that, might have broken a few laws. I don't know for sure. I'm not, a lawyer or whatever. I know that it did piss off a lot of people who tested for that reason, because they figured, I want to be ready for when it happens. Because part of it was that with, family tree DNA, they have a Y-DNA database, they have a mitochondrial DNA database, and they have the autosomal DNA. So when you do Nebula whole genome sequencing, then you're getting all of that. So by having all of that and then being able to get that in family tree DNA, That's amazing. And especially from the big Y standpoint. Because with big Y DNA, where they're testing, the best test they can for your Y DNA, you're basically getting that already from Nebula. And so it's like, it would have been a really good thing. So I think that, it definitely indicates to me that, there's definitely something going on there, with the new company taking over. I don't know anything about it. I haven't looked that much into it. I kind of have, I wouldn't say given up on Nebula, but I don't talk about it anymore because the possibility of the genealogy side of it just isn't there. I do mention it whenever whole genome sequencing comes up because it is a way to test for whole genome sequencing, and you can then download those results and put them onto other websites that are third parties. So like YFull, that's what I did. I put my Nebula genome, whole genome sequence Y test and mitochondrial onto YFull, and so now I'm in that database. But yeah, hopefully that kind of answered the question. I mean, definitely download all the data. Just best to have that. One of the things that a lot of genealogists have been saying for years and has very much been proven over the past couple of years is snapshot as much as you possibly can on any of the websites, and keep track of it, because you never know when someone's going to delete their stuff or when a website's going to change it and you no longer have access to this tool, or this tool is no longer available, or this match isn't on there, or just whatever. Or like what 23andMe did back in whenever, 2018, 2019, they dropped the ability to have thousands of matches to only 1,500 matches. And, we're talking, people that had hundreds of thousands of matches now losing hundreds of thousands of matches and only getting 1,500. And then if you pay for the Premium Plus, you get the 5,000 matches. Still thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousand matches gone. Yeah, all sorts, Michelle. Well, much of the medical stuff will never be tested. I guess what you're saying is, that most of the stuff that you're going to test for through medical testing, it's going to be a waste of money, which, yeah, in a sense it is. But at the same time, like, I'm not saying that 23andMe and the other DNA tests for medical side, there's no use for it. There certainly is a use for people to kind of just get a very basic look at things. But that's the thing, is people have to understand that it's extremely basic. So if you do one of these tests and it says you have, no increased risk of getting this disease, it's not saying you have no risk. It's saying you have no increased risk based on the DNA. But even when you look at that, the amount of DNA that they're using to come up with that is usually only a snippet of the total amount of DNA that's needed to come up with a advanced explanation. So as an example, which I used in my recent video on 23andMe, when it comes to breast cancer, the BRCA, there's a BRCA, one gene, and the other genes that are associated with breast cancer, within those genes, there are thousands of spots on the DNA, variant specific spots on the DNA, where that helps us tell whether or not someone actually, this gene is activated, basically. And then they have a higher risk of having breast cancer. And so we're talking, 3,000. But on 23andMe, they're only testing for 44. So if they happen to be testing 44, and those 44 just happen to be the only 44 of the variants out of all 3,000 that you aren't matching on those, it's going to come back, no increased risk. Whereas if you tested all of them, it's going to have, lots of them. So, even if you do these tests and you get a no increased risk, there still might be increased risk and you just don't realize it. And so, it certainly can be good as like a baseline. And I think that's a good point of, it just tests a whole ton of stuff. But even with that in mind, it still is like, okay, we got to be careful. And then same with the other way, you do the test and it's like, oh my gosh, 44 of these variants detected, you have a super high increased risk. Then you go and get the medical testing and they're like, yeah, there's 44 we're the only 44. Now, I doubt that it would be that perfect that it's like those 44 were the only ones or weren't the only ones or whatever, but it's just, just as an example. So good point, but also, I think that's the thing with all of this DNA testing and the medical stuff and the even when it comes to beyond all that, the risks of DNA testing and whatever, it's so complex. And that's one of the things that really annoys me about a lot of the fear-mongering videos and things that go out, where it's like you really have to give it true nuance, otherwise you screw it up. And I think that a great example was Dr. Mike's video. Everything he said in that video, I basically agreed with, minus the fact that his conclusion was there's no reason to take these tests, as well as not mentioning, I think maybe in like one spot, he like mentions for a half a second, and they use it for family stuff, but like basically does not mention a single place of why people would get a benefit of DNA testing. And he doesn't even mention the video, look, I'm only talking about the medical side of things, because had he done any of that, it would have been leaps and bounds better. Granted, he still had a lot of stuff that was off. Like one of the things he was talking about, investigative genetic genealogists and law enforcement using 23andMe, which is not possible. There's no way they can do that. It's literally not possible. And Dr. Mike actually responded in a comment to my video. And that was one of the things that he was like, well, this Good Morning America article says they did. It's like, dude, are you serious? That's the proof. Good Morning America? Like, come on. Like, that's one article that 23andMe had their own statement saying this is false. This is not false. Like, yeah, I don't know. So it's, yeah. All right. I'd say, I'm rambling, but thank you, JC. But I am rambling, but I guess in a good way. So, all right. Shalom, Mazel Tov. Hello, hola, from Brazil. Hola a todos. Oh, wait, no. Hola, Pasual. There we go. Hola, Pasual de Brazil. Do Brazil? Never, I can't. How is it that D-O with the thing? I don't know. Hello, thank you for joining from Brazil. Many genetic conditions require genetic counseling prior to testing. Bearvar, on Nebula, you mainly need to download the CRAM files. You can reverse out the other files from the CRAM. Okay, interesting. That's something I did not know. Thank you. Ambabambabam. No, I did not pronounce it. That's what I'm gonna Ambabambabam. That's what I'm gonna call you. I hope you're laughing at that, not like what? All right. Is there a database for Are You Related to Famous Jews in America, similar to Family Search's Famous Relatives or BYU site? So there's only technically there's only one I know of, but I also don't know if you can still use it or not. So Genie had a third-party tool created by a user that was called the Genie relationship, or no, path to or relation. I don't know. Doesn't really matter what it's called, but basically they created a third-party tool that allowed you to compare your profile or any profile that was a public profile, or like, well, I guess not a public profile. It doesn't have to be, but basically you can take any profile and then plug it into this tool and then choose one of the Genie projects to compare against. And then it will show you how you're related to everybody in that project. So to explain a lot of this, I'm going to actually show a bit more. So first I need to pull up the projects, but I want to make sure I'm in a spot that I'm not showing anything private. Okay, so Genie projects. So there's various different projects, but there's probably, so we have, let's see. So here we go, Notable American Jews. So basically what you would do is you would use this project, 7296, and you'd plug it in. And so all of the profiles, so there's 1,242 project profiles, would then be compared against whatever your profile is. So I wonder if it even works. Yeah, Genie Path to User, that's what it's called. We're gonna see if it works. I'm gonna give it a shot. Oh, well, that doesn't bode well when it says this page no longer exists. Okay, let's see. Try this again. See if this is a different one or if it's the same. No, page doesn't work. Crazy. Yeah. There was always, unfortunately, there was a lot of issues with it sometimes. Let's see. History link. Yeah, that's the same one. Same one. Yeah, let's see. Let's try one more time. Okay, history link. Okay, unfortunately, I'm not seeing it. So it's this website by this user, Jeff Genties. Maybe it's Jeff Genties. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is that it? The history, compare history search? Maybe this is it. Okay, yeah, I don't think this is it. I'm gonna have to look into this, unfortunately. I think they must have taken it out. Yeah. So maybe there's not a way, but there used to be a way, and maybe if I poke a couple of people and say, "Hey, why don't you do that?" Maybe we can get it going. But the way it used to work, you plug it in, and so like this, there's the 1,242. So, and number one, my cousin Irving Mills, my first cousin 3 times removed. That's awesome. Added on September 7th. I wonder if I was the one that added him. Probably not, because his brother should be in here too. So, yeah. So it compares you to all of them, or it would. You know what? I'm gonna try one more way. See if maybe there's one more way to do it. But I'm guessing not. But might as well try. Give it a shot. Give it a shot. Okay. Nope. That one didn't work. Is this one gonna work? Nope. All right. Yeah, I hate to say it. I think it's just completely broken now. It doesn't work. Oh, that's such a shame. It was such a good tool too, because I would use it for a lot of my YouTuber family trees, and that was kind of how I was able to identify famous relatives, because I'd go in and I had a couple of different projects I'd identified that had a large amount of very well-known figures, and would plug it through those and find different relations and stuff that were really cool. So yeah, I'll need to ask about that. That's such a shame. Such a shame. So yeah. All right. Let's see. Fat Captain 2006. Merry Christmas. How far back can you go on your patrilineal and matrilineal lines? So interestingly enough, both my patrilineal and matrilineal lines are, I'd say, some of my closest brick wall lines. So my closest brick wall ancestor is my great grandmother Fanny. Unfortunately, we know almost nothing about her pre-US, or, her siblings, her parents, we really know jack squat. But basically, for my patrilineal line, I know up to my second great grandfather's name, Shlomo Zalman Goldenberg. Technically, there is, I wouldn't say there's a question mark. There are a couple of records and stuff that have a little contradiction to it, but not like a crazy contradiction necessarily. So my second great grandfather, and then there's we possibly have my third great grandfather named. So my second great grandfather, Shlomo Zalman Goldenberg, we know the family came from Sokotyani in present day Ukraine. We also know there was likely a Romanian connection because a lot of the other family members were like in Yash and Bucharest. But with Sokotyani, there is a cemetery there where there's a Shlomo Zalman Goldenberg buried, who would have been the right age, died in, it made sense. Like, I think the gravestone says, died 1910, born or like 80 something years old, or like I think it says how old he was. And so we assume that that's probably our Shlomo Zalman Goldenberg. We just don't know for sure, but it lists his father's name. So if that is correct, then I have up to my third great grandfather. On my matrilineal line, that traces up a little bit further. And actually, I was recently able to get that traced further back. So for a long time, my matrilineal line brick-walled at my second great grandmother, who was basically, it was either Rivka or Rachel, or, we weren't 100% sure. And there was this family story as well, that she was, there's a family story that basically she was the second wife of my second great grandfather, and then my second great grandfather's first wife was actually her older sister who had died. Now, I've since learned that that is not the case. In fact, the marriage record of my second great grandparents spells it out very distinctly that the first wife and my second great grandfather divorced each other. The first wife then went and got married to some other guy, and then my second great grandfather went and married my second great grandmother. So we know that the story of them being sisters is not true as well, because through the paper trail, now we know that they weren't sisters. So here, let me put this on screen. So me, my parents, my grandmother, great grandmother, who I knew my great grandmother. She lived to be 100. Didn't make it to 101, but she lived to be 100. And so my second great grandparents. And so this first wife, Anna Reza Romanovich, we always thought she was the older sister. Turned out she wasn't. So when we finally found the marriage record, which actually I was notified about this marriage record because of another researcher who I then ran into at IAJGS a couple of times. Actually, at the last IAJGS, we played a whole bunch of board games, which is awesome. But so long story short, was able to trace it one generation back further with the matrilineal side. Granted, I was able to get my third great grandmother's father's name because it actually says it in the records. Bela Reza Yankelov was it. But so on both lines, technically up to my third great grandparent. But for my matrilineal line, confidently to my third great grandmother. To on my patrilineal line, not quite as much. Now, one interesting thing about this is that once I found the record for their marriage, I was able to then actually build out my second great grandmother's family tree. I identified a bunch of siblings and have then since found multiple DNA matches from these siblings to help confirm this. So very confident about it. So yeah, so those are that's how far back I can go on my matrilineal and patrilineal. So yeah. Okay, wow, a lot of chatting going on, and I totally missed where I was, so kind of be jumping forward a little bit, I think. Where was I? Yeah. Okay, Gainer, no illegitimacy or NPE. My ancestry have over 20,000 DNA matches. Closest matches have confirmed my ancestors for several generations. Only one third great grandmother, Miss Sarah Smith, unknown. Yeah. That's way too far back to explain a 24% unknown. So yeah. Yeah, venting. Venting. And I do like that. I was tempted to say that. I changed my mind, and it is possible to ramble. The fact that you can tell the difference is still a good thing. Good, good. Let's see. Wes Craven. Is there software that works well with bigger family trees? I have Ancestry, but it doesn't really work well for printing more than a couple of generations for bigger families. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to printing family trees, that's a whole different ball game because you're usually wanting to bring in some sort of specialty printer. What is it? Chart Masters, Print Chart Masters. I forgot what it's called. The company that's actually now owned by Krista Cowan, the barefoot genealogist, who's very well known as kind of the spokesperson of Ancestry in the U.S. I don't know if she's officially the spokesperson, but you see something from Ancestry in the U.S., you're probably going to see Krista, and she owns Chart Masters or whatever it is. And so if you really want to family Chart Masters, so if you want to get a high quality print, you're probably going to have to go through them, because once you start getting into families that are, a couple of generations, like even just a family tree of like 50 people, that's really difficult to print, really difficult to design, print, all that. So, years back, I used Family Chart Masters for a family tree. I was decently happy with it. There were some things I wasn't the happiest with. I think the biggest complaint that I had with it, which I don't know if it's still the same these days, was that it was like, for the thing that I was printing, it was almost like twice the cost just to be able to review it, to make sure that everything transferred over properly. Because if anyone, for anyone that has had experience transferring GEDCOM files from one family tree software to another, you'll commonly find that things don't translate very well sometimes. And so that was a worry that I had. And so I asked about, well, if I want to review it, just to, just go through and make sure, okay, the names are right, the whatever, or at the very least, can you look at it, just a spot check? And they were like, however much it was like, I don't know how much it was, but let's say it was $200. They were like, okay, well, that'll be another $150, or like some crazy price. Like, it was not reasonable at all. So yeah, that was the only thing that I kind of had to complain about. But I did that back in 2018 because I got that printed for a family reunion I was doing. And the print turned out really nice, but just like I was worried, there were a few errors. One or two of the names came out a little clunky, which I don't know what that was about. I think it was because the tree I had was from Genie.com, which has a lot of name fields that not all family tree softwares use. So I think that might have caused it. And then there were a couple of family members in there that I didn't realize the formatting of the year was 2 digits instead of the 4 digits. Instead of 1987, it was 87. So there was like 2 or 3 profiles where it was like it formatted to 0087 for the year as an example. So it was like, what? Like, it was, so it wasn't anything crazy, but for having spent the money and done all that to get it printed and then have, 4 or 5 errors, and the only way to combat that is 150, almost twice, or, almost the same cost as the whole thing. It's like, that's crazy. So, I remember when Krista bought it, that was one of the things I actually thought about asking her, like, are you still going to do that? Or like, why, what was the deal with that? It makes no sense to me. As someone who's seen graphic designing and printing and stuff, like, how hard is it to then just send a format of that image. Granted, maybe it is harder, there are some images, now I'm venting. So yeah, the only issue I ran into with it, of course, if you've got tons of money, that's not going to be an issue. But in terms of the real question that you have, or I guess I shouldn't say real question, but the heart of the question, is there software that works well with bigger family trees? I don't personally know of any right off the top of my head that I could say confidently it is better. I personally feel Genie is better with bigger family trees. It's one of the reasons why I've really enjoyed Genie over the years more than most of the other family trees, is because I think it gives you the most ability to manipulate your view. You can choose how many descendant generations you view, how many ancestor generations you view. You can limit it on, show only ancestors. And then there, a couple other things. So, and I also find that when you do the actual view of a large, like if you load a, 5,000 person family tree on Genie, you'll be able to browse it easily without the software having issues. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the offline softwares work really well with that, Family Tree Maker or Roots Magic, largely because, with the internet-based trees, it's constantly loading stuff because, it's not going to load every little bit. Although I think that's why Genie works so well. It kind of like loads it all at once, but not fully, because it still loads as you scroll. But either way, when you're doing Roots Magic or whatever, it's all in there. So it probably goes quicker. But I have not used Roots Magic or Family Tree Maker in recent years. So I wouldn't really know if that is the case. So I'm kind of talking on my ass there, but sorry. Okay, let's see. Brian, I'm considering DNA tests for both my parents. Mom is African American and dad is Nigerian. In testing both useful or a waste of money, know any tests that specialize in Nigerian or African genealogy? So this is a very interesting question in a couple of ways, because I feel like this hits at a major issue that people have when they think of DNA testing and African ancestry. Because when you look at someone who has African American ancestry and someone who has African ancestry, there is a difference. And when it comes to a lot of the discussion about DNA testing, and especially African ancestry and DNA testing, it usually talks about the admixture, which is just an issue in all of DNA testing, unfortunately. But it also focuses on that, with African results, we don't get as nice of an admixture, which is kind of the same thing as the first, but that seems to be what everyone harps on. So whenever people ask this type of question, that's usually what people go to is, well, what's the site that's going to give you the best quote unquote admixture? I'm guessing that that's not really what you're asking. I'm guessing you're really asking about the genealogy aspect of which one has the best matches. Now, I am assuming this off of what you had said earlier, because you had said something that basically made me think that you've done genealogy. I can't remember what you said earlier, and I'm not finding it, so it doesn't matter. But but when it comes to that question of what's the best test, for African ancestry, it is a different answer if you're focusing on the admixture versus the matches. Unfortunately, I don't know if there really is a strong answer either way. For the admixture side of things, living DNA is a big one, because for years and years and years, they've said, that's our thing. We have a really nuanced African admixture breakdown. We have a really nuanced Northwestern European breakdown as well. And then I think some other stuff too. As well with that, I forgot which site, if it was if it was Ancestry.com or if it was one of the other ones where basically in their update, they were like, Africa was a big focus for us. So we've got a lot more testing populations, and so we get better results. But with my focus, and what I think your focus is, maybe I'm wrong, the matches is where you get the best benefit. And that's really where it matters the most. But unfortunately, that's where I have even less of an answer than than before. In terms of the African American side, for one, I think it is extremely useful for you to have your mom test and your dad test, especially because if you're thinking, well, I could test and get both sides, especially with your mom coming from an African American ancestry and your dad coming from a Nigerian ancestry. I think you're going to get a much better idea of nuance going on, because I'm guessing the admixture your dad gets and what your mom gets going to be very different. But as well, I think it's going to be interesting for the matches sides of things, because you're going to get the best matches by having each one of them test. And with your dad testing, the focus would be what site has a database that has the most African testers, and even more specifically, Western African, basically, Nigerian areas, which I would just say the whole Western Africa kind of world, kind of going down to like Equatorial Guinea, and then big circle up, maybe I don't know if you get into Kenya necessarily, but go out east, come up, go around, barely touch Egypt, not getting into North Africa, and then just come around and just north of what is it, Senegal or whatever. Maybe it's a bit further north. I don't know, but like that area, what site has the most testers from that region specifically of Africa? And I don't know. I would suspect that MyHeritage may have a very large matching database of actual African testers, but I don't know for sure. The reason I say that is because for years, dating back, MyHeritage focused on creating distribution centers around the world to make it as easy as possible to get their DNA test in various countries. Because they did that, their database now has the best or has the largest database of testers that are outside of what I like to call the English-speaking world, which is what you find mostly on Ancestry, 23andMe, and Family Tree DNA. You're finding people usually in the US and Canada and the UK, Scotland, Ireland, all those. I can never remember who's in the UK. I apologize. But then, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, that's what you're finding on Ancestry and all of that. You find others, of course, but when you go to MyHeritage, that's when you find the largest non-English speaking. For me, coming from Jewish ancestry, I test on MyHeritage. That's where I see a lot of the matches of people that still live in Eastern Europe. It's where I see the matches of people that are in Israel. That's where I see the most matches of mine that are in South America. And I've never necessarily heard that translates as well to African testers, but I would not be surprised if that does. Now, for the African American side, I think it's going to be having your mom tested Ancestry is your best option, because African American ancestry, then I'm guessing that, if not all, the majority of those lines for your mom trace back to, American slavery, pre-1860, probably unsure when your African ancestors even set foot into the Americas, but could be as early as the 1600s. And so the majority of matches you're looking for then are going to be people who are in America, because that's probably where the majority of the descendants of your ancestors, your relatives from your African American side are. So, the typical advice of any American testing, test on Ancestry is probably your best bet. Then you can upload it into Family Tree DNA for free. You can upload it into GEDmatch for free. And then it is also worthwhile to possibly have your parents, both of them, test in multiple sites. So if you have a limited budget, obviously you're only going to want to do so much that your budget allows. But if you have a budget that does allow, your best bet is to have them test everywhere. And this goes for everybody, because when it comes to DNA matches and genetic genealogy and actually using the DNA to truly learn the actual history of your family, connect with relatives, and use their tree and your tree to then figure out how you're related and all of that, you want to be on as many databases as possible, because every single database is going to have some sort of unique testers to their database, people who are only in their database. And so if you don't test in that database, and there's a match in there that's only in that database that would help you uncover, everything that you're looking for this one line, then you're never going to get that until you get into that database. So basically, as many as possible. But as I mentioned, if you are limited, now that MyHeritage does not allow uploading and transfers, it might make sense to have your father test on MyHeritage. At the very least, I'd be very curious to see if that does actually, if there are more African testers on MyHeritage versus the other sites that are, from Africa, African, as opposed to African American, which I do want to say here, I get comments very, very minimally, but every once in a while I get comments of people that are like, I hate the term African American. You need to stop using that, blah, blah. But in reality, I find that it makes the most historical sense and genetic sense in that African Americans are different than Latino or Afro-Latinos and Afro-Caribbean populations and African populations. And then even within Africa, you have a massive variety. I mean, North Africa, Western Africa, Eastern Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, and then even within those regions that are, more succinct. So it's like, to me, it's like, well, yeah, African American makes sense because it's talking about a specific population group that were once African, then taken from Africa, enslaved in America. And I guess you could be even more specific and say basically enslaved in the US. And then from there, only having that as their, or not only having that as their ancestor, but from there, then staying within the US. And, that's a very specific population that dates back hundreds of years. So, yeah. William, what is it you're trying to do? I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to, because I see some more comments you have. So I don't think that you're like trolling me by saying, what is it you're trying to do? So I don't know. Maybe it was from when I was talking about something earlier. Wow, I am far back, and I have been going for 2 hours. Ooh, excuse me. Wow. Well, I guess that's what's going to make this all special for the holidays. It's a super long one. It felt like I'd only been going for like an hour. Wow. Okay. I'm going to jump ahead a bit because I am realizing how far back that is. Wow. Yeah, this comment was from 24 minutes ago. Let's see if I'm missing anything big. Okay, yeah. So, all right. Well, hopefully I didn't miss too much. As per usual, try to answer as much as I can in the chat. Can't guarantee it at all, but just to say, I do guarantee the super chats, which I did have a super chat earlier, which was Vincograph. That's right, Vincograph. So thank you very much for that. Helps support the channel greatly. Makes it so I can keep doing this kind of stuff. Yeah, I do guarantee that I answer those, partially because they're so easy to find. As you can see that I found that other one like with it like that. Easy to keep track of. All right, so let's see where we at. Okay, yeah. Just check. Just trying to check. Some of you are just chatting with each other. Okay. Oh, this is interesting from Eve. When I first tested on Ancestry, I had 137 close matches. Now I have 490, but it shows 30,889 distant matches. Many of my ancestor siblings and first cousins converted to Mormon LDS in the 1840s. Continuing. And I have DNA N equals matches descended from Utah polygamists. Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess you have a lot. Yeah, for me, actually here, I'm going to pull this out here. So I know I've mentioned it before in multiple videos. I've actually never tested on Ancestry. My parents both have, which basically makes it useless for me to, from a genealogy standpoint. The only use for me testing on Ancestry would just be, well, let's see what the changes are from me to them. But for my mom, let's see. Oh, no, I forgot. You have to go to summary now. They used to show it on your actual matches page. For my mom, she has 183,204 matches. Excuse me. And then for my dad, he has 237,072 matches, which I actually I don't know if this is the case, but I'm just wondering out loud if the reason my dad has more matches is because he's fully Ashkenazi, whereas for my mom, she's like about, 85% Ashkenazi and about 15% Sephardi or so. So kind of interesting. But yeah, hundreds of thousands. William, I don't know about African ancestry, but I know my heritage, and to a lesser extent, FTDNA is popular with people in Finland. Okay, very cool. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that with FTDNA, but I knew about that with my heritage. My heritage has a huge Scandinavian representation, which I know Finland kind of is outside of Scandinavia in a sense, but also in a sense, I think we all realize, like, it's like Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, Denmark. Yeah. So, yeah, but yeah, that's very interesting to know. I know I remember when we had some conversations about the Sami people, I think Family Tree DNA came up in that. Okay, let's check. Okay, I'm definitely missing stuff, but let's see. Sharon, any idea how to identify my specific DNA Jewish relative families when I know there were name deviations? Many of my diamonds became Margulis. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the answer is basically just trying to trace it through the paper trail, which can be really, really difficult. And usually what you want to do there is you want to find some sort of record that lists both names. And this can get very burdensome because usually the best place you find that is naturalization records, especially, families that naturalized in the US. You get naturalization records and it'll sometimes say, the original name, especially if you have a certificate of arrival with the naturalization paperwork. Those usually will have, this is what their name was on the manifest. And the certificate of arrival basically means they found this person in the manifest, and it will tell you where to find them. Because I've had a few manifest records where I actually had to find them that way because the indexing of the record was not done well. And so then trying to find it through a search couldn't be done. So I had to look up the ship, go through go through it one by one. But that's it. That's one way. One other way that I found one of these types of name changes in my own family line, which still is not 100% confirmed, but we're pretty confident about it based on DNA and the paper trail. But for my Rosenberg family, before the US, they were Drakowski. And that wasn't something we ever thought about until a cousin of mine from another side of my family, Evan Wolfson, who's an amazing genealogy researcher. He's very big in the Suwalki Lumsa research group. He was doing a project for these people for DNA, and he kept noticing my family members popping up because he's seen my family tree because of, being cousins and genealogists. We always kind of mess with each other's trees a little bit. So he kept recognizing, DNA kits that I manage, DNA kits of cousins of mine, and realized they were all coming from my Rosenberg side. So he was like, I'm really confident that your Rosenberg side used to be Drakowski. And even more, I actually have a specific person in the family tree I think is that person because the names match up and the timing and all that. And so when we started to look further into everything, we were able to confirm it with more records. Right? I shouldn't say confirm it. We were able to take steps forward to confirming it with more records. And then the thing that really set it apart was that we found a a passage record. Actually, I wonder if I can pull it up on stream here. Basically, you know, back when people would migrate to the US, they would often have cousins paying for their passage. And so there's these passage records that are on Jewish Gen. You can search them, or they're indexed on Jewish Gen, but the actual record is available through Temple University, I think it is. But in that actual record, we see who we are pretty confident is my third great grandfather coming over to the US with his passage being paid by one of the Rosenbergs here. So here we've got that record. So there's a couple of you know, so we've got Yankel Drotkowski, who's my third great grandfather, or we're very confident is my third great grandfather. And so he paid for this Elka Drotkowski in June June 14th, 1890, whereas we can see that Frida, Michla, and Dinka Drotkowski all came over with Jetty Rosenberg paying for it. And then when we got the actual records, the addresses were matching up. So that's why we're very confident about it. Now, there's always a possibility that, you know, it's very crazy coincidence going on with this, but this is something that we're very confident about. And so, you know, it can take a bit, but, you know, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Ren, what are the chances MyHeritage allows DNA uploads on special days? I don't know, but I actually had said that I thought that could be a possibility when they first announced they were stopping uploads and transfers, because, you know, my understanding is the upload and transfers thing was stopped because of the investigative genetic genealogy, most specifically when it was revealed that there were certain investigative genetic genealogy teams that were uploading profiles to MyHeritage, even though their terms of service specifically said that that was not allowed. And I believe it actually came out in actual court documents. If I remember correctly, it was the Koberger case from Idaho. But basically, you know, they were like, you know, we can't keep allowing this. So it would make sense that they would do special, you know, DNA day for the next 24 hours, upload your DNA, because, you know, while it does give a window, I guess, for people to nefariously use it, creating a small window makes it so that there's less of a chance, you know. It is really such a shame that there have been some IGG practitioners that have done things that are, you know, very questionably ethical or moral or whatever. And so, you know, yeah. I will say, you know, I do miss investigative genetic genealogy in many ways. There's a lot of reasons why I'm not, you know, why I'm happy that I am not dealing with that anymore, because it really is, you know, when I was doing it, I was always just so careful about every little thing I did, because I just did not want to do something that, you know, it's like, you know, next month, all of a sudden my, you know, face is up on, you know, news, you know, programs. This guy did this. Are you kidding me? You know, then I'm the face of, you know, get rid of IGG. You know, I was like, no, I'm not gonna be the guy, you know. So I'm sure I, you know, there were a couple of times when I was doing work and stuff that, you know, I was like, look, no, that, you know, but I don't know. I was pretty happy with where I was, the company, because I felt that, you know, their morals and ethics of, you know, we need to stick to this was along the way with me. So, you know, I really didn't have that much issue. Oh, did I say Africa country? I did not mean to if I said that. It is definitely a continent. Yeah. Although I may be incontinent if I'm not saying it properly. Okay, I might need to end this soon. I've been going a while. Oh, I see a question from JC. Are manifest records open for public search and not behind a paywall? Yeah, I think I think Ellis Island has a website database that you can go through. Family Search has them all for free. Yeah, I mean, I think they're public. I think so. Yeah. Oh, Gina, interesting. Nothing like Chinese, and I bet many other cultures' ancestry, where men could have more than 4 names, including a taboo name, depending on the stage of life. Yeah, that's actually very common for a lot of the Sephardic Jews who were part of the Western diaspora, the Western Sephardic diaspora, basically the ones that when the Spanish Inquisition happened, they went to Portugal, then hiccups, excuse me. Then Portugal enacted an Inquisition a little bit later, and then they had to basically escape from Portugal. And so a lot of the people that were the ones that were like, leaving Portugal, they often had a new Christian name. They had an alias name that they would use. Some of them might take on a Hebrew name once they've come to, so they'll have, they'll come to Amsterdam, let's say, and then they have, their name, they have an alias, and they have like a Hebrew name or something, or something like that. So yeah, definitely, I kind of understand that, but yeah, it's great. So many names makes it so much harder. And I saw that come through. Thank you so much, Sherry. I appreciate that very much. Thanks for the long Christmas episode. My pleasure. I mean, this is, it's felt like I haven't been going too long. Granted, now I am. Lately, like over the past couple of minutes, I definitely hit a wall of like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little, a little whatever. But thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. $1.99. Thank you. Let's see. Where am I? Yeah, a lot of people identifying stuff. Very cool. Yeah, I remember 23andMe allowed uploads for a DNA day years ago. I remember that as well. And that must have been a long time ago because I remember, for some reason, I remember waiting on DNA to do that and it not coming in time, which would have been 2013. So I don't know if maybe it was back then. I don't know. It's definitely been a long time since they've done that. Definitely a long time. Definitely a long time. And yeah, happy to help. Where's the donation? Oh wow. Literally right as I click that, I see the donation. Thank you so much, Sharon. I appreciate that for the $9.99. That really does help out. Thank you very much, everybody that to Sharon, to Sherry, and Vince O'Graph. Thank you all. I really do appreciate you all helping support the channel, making it so I can continue doing these live streams for you all every week. So that's awesome. All right, let's see. I think the National Archives of Ireland will crash the day the 1926 census goes live. Yeah, I imagine so. Which I've been doing so much more Irish research lately, which I think you'll all find in the video coming up soon. Which, by the way, if you haven't all noticed, I'm trying so hard to get on a weekly release schedule. I haven't been exactly 1 week because I try to prefer Wednesdays, and then when I posted the one with Max always posts Tuesdays, and I was like, well, let's go with your audience. You got the bigger audience, so we do that. So yeah, so hint, look out for videos at least next Wednesday. We'll see if I try to keep it up, but it's difficult. I make too grandiose of videos. That's part of the problem. That's why you've started to see me do more talking head videos, like the 23andMe one and the one about Ancestry banning forensic genealogy. I just need to do more where I just sit down and talk, and not so many of like, oh, I got to figure out this, and then the research thing. You do research, and then you find out, okay, I'm researching this one guy, but then I find out that, oh, well, he went and he worked at this one business. Oh, well, what's the history of that business? What, next thing I know, I'm like learning all this stuff about all these little things. And then next thing you know, I'm like, wait a second, I've gone too far. I've got too much. Antonio, hello, am I late? Unfortunately, you're a little late. Gonna end it soon, I think. Going over 2 hours a day, kind of crazy. Um, Burke, what is the ideal amount SNP in a triangulated segment, proving that it's coming from a common ancestor? So basically, what's the SNP overlap or the total SNPs within a triangulated segment that helps prove that it's coming from a common ancestor? And I unfortunately don't think there's a good answer for that, because when it comes to segments and like how much we measure of centimorgans and all that, it doesn't necessarily correlate with the number of SNPs we use. So when we look at a segment of DNA on that's been tested, that segment covers, thousands of spots of your genome, but within those thousands of spots, they're only using maybe a couple hundred SNPs, because SNP is single nucleotide polymorphism. So those are those singular spots where we're expecting a polymorphism, so a change from the reference. And so with that change from the reference, there are certain parts of your genome where we're testing a higher density of SNPs versus other spots. So technically, the higher the density, the better off it is. But in all reality, most genealogists do not utilize SNP density or total SNP overlap for genetic genealogy. The only time that I have ever utilized that was in my investigative genetic genealogy days. And specifically, that was when I was doing what was known as intelligence testing. So this is a non-consumer DNA test. This is a test only available for forensic genealogy testing. And basically, instead of the 700,000 SNPs that a typical test, like Ancestry does, Intelligence only tests 10,230 SNPs. So literally just over 1% of the amount of DNA you get from an Ancestry test, which then is like 0.0001% of your entire genome or something. I don't know. But basically, when we did intelligence testing, because we had so far fewer SNPs, that we had to then utilize the SNP overlap to help us in figuring out false positive matches versus true positive matches. Because one of the issues with intelligence, it gave a lot of false positive matches. So that was the only time I've really used overlap, is in that case of, okay, well, we did, we had this profile that we sequenced. It had a 90% rate. It had a 90% read rate. So out of the 10,230 SNPs, only 90% of them were read. So we're looking at like a little over 9,000 SNPs. So if I look at a match and I see that the SNP overlap is in the 9,000s, okay, that's good. But if I look at another match and the SNP overlap is in the 7,000s, okay, that's telling me that this match likely has over imputation, is what I guess I could call it. So I think I'm getting too jargony with this. So imputation, remember the SNPs, we're looking at one segment. Well, within, 1,000, let's say a segment is 1,000 spots on the DNA. So 1,000 nucleotides. So the base pairs, 1,000 base pairs. And we're only testing 5 out of those 1,000. Well, they do imputation to figure out what is the DNA between those spots. And so, yeah, I'm getting away from answering your question. I hope this is all making sense too for everybody. But basically with intelligence, we have that, we have larger gaps between the SNPs. And so it's a lot harder to tell things. And so within your question, triangulated segment and all that, you might have a really good triangulated segment where it has far fewer SNPs than another, triangulated segment that's you're not quite as confident in. So hopefully all that makes sense. I mean, there's a reason why it's not really utilized by most genetic genealogists, because it doesn't really help, show one way or the other whether a match is better or not, or more, you can be more confident in it necessarily. I mean, it can help a bit, but not a lot. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Yeah, I'm definitely reaching my end of the stream. Wait, did you figure out how to pronounce the two names? Which two names? I think I think I missed it. Amabam. Don't know. Don't know. All right, we have two more, I think, and then we'll call it the, the stream. Gina, one sad thing about Chinese ancestry in the past, at least, is that women's names got lost. They were not recorded by name in the Zupu, Xiapu, but by number, and when married, became women of Clan X. Yeah, that is kind of sad. Yeah, unfortunately, common for so many populations, though, is that it was all about the men. Genealogy for most of history has been extremely patrilineal or patronymic, or I don't know. Both of those are the wrong terms, but you all know what I mean. All right, and the last one, the memer. I was told I have Matisse ancestry on my French Canadian side, and one of my ancestors was born on a place called an Ekopak Medude, but I can't find any native Indian ancestry. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about any of that. So I guess native Indian. So if that is the case, I mean, my suggestion would be DNA testing if you haven't, because this is where admixtures actually become useful. You do a DNA test, you get your admixture, and then you see, do you have any South Indian, or not South Indian, South Asian DNA? And then if you do, then okay, that's probably a good indication. If you don't, then you can't necessarily say that it's not there, that you don't have any Indian ancestry, because if your most recent Indian ancestor was a fifth great grandfather, they may still be your ancestor, but you might not have inherited any DNA from them. So yeah. All right. Well, let's see. Yeah. Okay, thank you for the my DNA match is quite small, largest being 55 centimorgans. Oh, native. Oh, okay. So okay. So that's why I was confused, because native Indian makes it sound like you're talking about native to India as opposed to indigenous American is what I would call it. So kind of same thing. I mean, you would expect Indian or indigenous American of some sort to be popping up, and especially in my experience, the further north you go, those Native American tribes or indigenous American tribes or whatever you want to call them, the further north you go, the more Asian DNA they seem to have, versus it being read as indigenous American, which was one of the things I pointed out in my video where I reacted years ago to like a bunch of indigenous American results. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. The more further north you get, the more Asian, But so many people thought that I was saying that in like, he doesn't know that Native Americans actually came out of Asia. It's not what I said at all. So, all right. Well, that's I think that should be it. Hopefully that helped answer that for you, Memer. Not sure, but thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for joining. Once again, hope you all had a Merry Christmas, had a Happy Hanukkah, happy whatever. I'm not going to turn the lights on. We'll put the beanie on just to do it. Oh wait, wrong way. There we go. Carolina Hurricanes. So oh wait, that's why I was like wondering, why is it looking so funky? There we go. But yeah, that's okay. So all right, well, thank you everybody. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, especially for those of you in the future where it's already Saturday, like Jennifer. Oh, sorry, puppy. I just actually kicked my dog. Sorry, baby boy. I didn't even see her down there. But yeah, new video coming out next week. Keep your eyes out for it. So excited about it. Been working on this one for a while. Next Friday, streaming as usual, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And I don't know what else to say. I guess go watch my videos. If you need consultations, email me. Consultations available. Thank you to everybody who donated again. I really appreciate it. It really helps support the channel. And I think that's it. I think that's gonna be it. Yeah. All right. I'm Jared Ross, the GeneaVlogger. I'll see you all later. I'll see you next week.